everybody, welcome to One More Round with Josh Norris. I'm excited to have Jesse here with me today.
Thanks for having me.
We have a great show. Before we get started, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you leave a comment if there's some good stuff, and give us a like. So Jesse Sinzak, he comes from Ohio, retired pro snowboarder, winner of season 4 of ABC's Bachelorette, 2010 Winter Olympic host, crime solver on America's Most Wanted, husband, father of 3, business owner, and patriot. Well, welcome, Jesse.
Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, man. So how old are you?
I'm old, man.
34?
I hit the big 40 this year.
Oh, did you? Okay.
Yeah.
Well, damn, you've done more before 40 than most people have done before 60. So.
I like adventure, I've been really blessed to be in the right place at the right time, and everybody's got a story to tell, and mine's just, I guess, a little bit different than some of the rest.
Yeah, well, we'll start with The Bachelor because I think that's very interesting. How the heck did you end up on The Bachelor?
It was all my cousin Heather and my Aunt Janet's fault. I was actually filming a snowboarding episode of MTV's Made,
okay,
where you take a person and you make them into something. You get a lot of fat kids that want to be bodybuilders, and you get cheerleaders that want to be snowboarders, and all this sort of thing. And I was teaching a girl to be a snowboarder, and we got finished, and the phone rang, and you get off a TV show and you think you're kind of a big deal. And that was back in the day when Ashton Kutcher was filming Punk'd. And so I get this call, and they're like, hey, we'd love to have you come to LA for ABC's The Bachelorette. So I literally thought I was being punked, right? I had hair down to my shoulders. I'm like, oh, do you have a shortage of dirtbags in LA? Like, what's the deal here?
Yeah.
And so I got on an airplane, and the next thing I knew, I was getting out of a limousine on night 1 to try to woo the girl. Crazy.
What was that like? I mean,
it's I'll give you the nuts and bolts. I'll give you a spoiler alert of the show. So night 1, whether it's a bachelor or bachelorette, night 1 takes about 10 to 12 hours to film. They literally start filming at sundown and stop filming. There's a farm next door when the rooster starts doing his thing. And in that 10 to 12 hours, that bachelor or bachelorette chooses their final 4 on night 1. People don't know that. So think if I put you in a room with 25 broads, you could tell me in 10 to 12 hours which 4 of those girls you would like to get to better know over, the next 8 weeks. And that's basically how the show works. So then the other, 16 or whatever that are left after you choose your final 4 are who they make the show out of while you're better getting to know those final 4 behind the scenes. So that's a spoiler alert. That's the nuts and bolts. So the real show is the final 4. You could skip the whole season if you wanted and just watch when it gets down to final 4, and that's the real show.
So the rest of it's just drama.
Yeah, problem, drama, solution. That's what they do. That's every good reality TV show is problem, drama, solution. It's crazy.
That's awesome. So you went from snowboarding on TV to The Bachelor.
Yeah.
What did you have TV in your mind growing up, or how did this all come about?
I had no desire to be on television. And what was crazy at the time, and I had no idea, was back then, people went on TV to do whatever it was, to win $1 million or to fall in love or whatever it was. And I was just looking for love. Nowadays, people just go on TV to get famous, right? And, at the time, I was like, hey, I want to be in love. I was like 25 or something. And like, it's time, find the one, settle down. And it was a great experience, man. I got to travel the world on somebody else's checkbook, and I got to meet a lot of incredible people. My wife, Ann, was on the season after me. So I won the show. The guy who took second, his name is Jason Mesnick. He became the next Bachelor. My wife was on his season, and that's actually how I met my wife. I started hosting Bachelor and Bachelorette reunion parties with ex-contestants from the show, and my wife came on the first reunion, and that's how I met her.
Wow.
Fast forward, now we got 3 kids.
Very cool. How old kids?
Noah is 11, Charlotte is 8, and Carter is 5.
Okay.
Yeah, 3 years apart.
The great ages.
It's awesome, yeah. It's so crazy being a dad. I mean, if you would ask me at 25, I'm going to have 3 kids, I would have laughed at you. You know what I mean? And now having 3 kids, I can't imagine life without my kids. It's a mind bender.
Same. Mine are 12, 10, and 4.
That's awesome.
And my daughter's the younger one,
Yep.
which was unexpected. But
Yep.
I'm like, I don't know what life looks like without.
Yeah. It's unreal. I remember when I found out we were having a girl, I was really bummed. And, Charbear definitely has a spot in Dad's heart for sure now. And it's like, at the time, I was, boys. But I think every bearded man that's a man's man should have a daughter.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's funny you say that. So for us, so 12, 10, and 4, so they were 8 and 6.
Yep.
We thought we were out of it.
Yeah.
We thought things were over. Our companies were doing well. Like money's coming in, and we're like, great, we're gonna get to travel now and all this stuff. And then somebody hadn't taken care of things like he should have.
Ding.
And I joke around. It's like I almost went through the stages of grief.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh,
Again.
gotta start over.
Yep.
But now I'm like, oh, it worked out great. Now my wife did book that appointment while she was pregnant, and no more.
Good for you.
Three's it.
That's
Three's
awesome.
company.
Yeah, we hadn't planned for any of them. We had 3 on birth control. So
Okay.
I feel you, man. I feel your pain. There's a doctor somewhere that deserves the capital of Thailand.
Yeah.
From me.
Yeah.
I'm like, you had one job, bro.
Yeah, seriously. Gosh dang. So, what happened after you left the Hollywood scene? Did you continue on with film or?
No, I never really had a desire to do it. It was just something that, because I was so real, I was the same person in person that I was on TV, and that at that time really benefited me, and I got a lot of opportunities and doors open because I was so real. It wasn't an act; it was just that guy.
Who you are, yeah.
Yeah, and I finished up with The Bachelor and Bachelorette, and I really started to get focused on finding the one, and that's when I met my wife Ann. And it was funny because I was a professional snowboarder, and after we got married, she was like, "Hey, you gonna get a real job?" And I'd like bought a couple of homes doing being a professional athlete, and I'm like, I thought I had a real job, And I always tell her she's my favorite ball buster, and so she got me into property management. She was like, "Show me your resume." And so I like held up a poster and jumping off a cliff or something. She's like, "You're an idiot." And she filled out like a resume and made me a, whatever you call it, a resume. I've worked for myself my whole life.
Yeah.
Like, what's a resume? You know what I mean? And she got me a job like director of marketing for this property management company, and I kind of learned that business, And during that time, I was trying to like go from, athlete, TV personality into like what you would consider real life, being a business owner and like doing your own thing kind of behind closed doors, and nobody sees you behind the lens. Mm-hmm. And the phone's still ringing. I'm getting calls from like America's Most Wanted, and I got lucky enough at one point to host the 2010 Olympics for the Associated Press. I was a snowboard analyst. I had all these different opportunities, and so you're kind of getting pulled in one direction or the other. And now it's just a big blur of this blurry timeline. But, it was like I did all this TV stuff, and then it was like the gears switched, and you go from like in front of the lens to no one cares, your 15 minutes is over. And that's an adjustment. And you see a lot of people in Hollywood, that have mental illness and this sort of thing. And all it is just a mental adjustment of how you're perceiving yourself and what your self-worth is. Mm-hmm. And, like you hear about all these suicides and all this stuff, and all it is they're on top of this mountain and they're riding this big TV wave, and then that ends.
I think it's always going to be that way.
Yeah, and it's not, it's just like anyone that owns a business. I mean, like, 08, you're down here, and then, you get a new president in and everything goes way up, and then another president and things go down. It's the same way with any sort of career. You're going to have your ups and downs, and people just can't wrap their head around that. A lot of people really struggle with that, and it's sad, mm-hmm. and it's kind of not a talked about thing. It's like, oh, that's sad, and I don't know. I never let it really affect me like others did. I was me all the time. It wasn't like that.
I think it's a generational thing too. Like,
for sure.
I'm a little younger than you, barely, 38, right? But when I grew up, every trophy, everything I ever competed for, you earned. Like, you didn't just
for sure
get
participation awards,
or anything like that. Like, it was and then when you lost, it sucked, and you dealt with it. Yeah. And you're like, how do I get better? Yeah. Can I work out more? Can I do whatever? But it pushes you, and you become like a better human being, and you can like deal with adversity. Yeah. So I think our generation and earlier, like, it's much easier to own businesses, and people are like, oh well, business ownership isn't easy. You're damn right it's not. Yeah. But neither is working a job for 40 years for somebody else. That's not easy either. No. But when you know how to deal with adversity and solve problems, like, that's
for sure.
what it comes down to.
It's funny you say that. So my son and and my kids and my wife and I we're big into horses, right? We own horses, we ride horses. So my son was competing at a horse show just this past week, Region 7, and so he has the best ride he's ever had on his horse. And he gets off, and they call top 5. There was like, I don't know, 8 kids in this whatever final or whatever it was. And his number's not called. And he's like, he just kind of, like you can tell, like he's like, what the heck? Like I gave everything I had. Well, so he leaves. He gets, you have to leave the arena when your number's not called. So he leaves. He gets off, and he's cool as a cucumber. And I'm like watching him, waiting for if there's going to be a meltdown or whatever. And he was cool as a cucumber. And all of a sudden, I see the horse trainer go running away into the office. I'm like, something's up. She comes back out. She goes, he won. I go, what do you mean he won? They called the numbers. He didn't win. She goes, no, they got the numbers mixed up. He won. Guarantee you, he won. So they go in. Sure enough, the announcer had circled his number, and the person that they had marked won were one number off.
Oh, okay.
So they miscircled it. And so he's like, he's in this mental mind bender at the time, right? Like you're talking about this adversity. He's like, how do I handle this? What do I do? And I said to him, after he found out he won, I said, no, I don't care what you do, win, lose, whatever. I want you to do it just like you just did it. Cool as a cucumber, because that's class. And winning's easy. Losing is hard. That's the adversity. That's when people want to quit. And the fact that you were able to put your best foot forward, give your best effort, and get what you thought knocked down, it wasn't good enough, you're not good enough, and you took it like a man, I applaud you. Because I remember as a kid.
It's life stuff.
Oh, man, it's real life stuff. I mean, think of how many business decisions where you did everything right and it failed.
Oh, yeah.
It happens all the time.
Yep.
You know what I mean? But you just keep going. You just, I saw some, meme or whatever you want to call it, and it was like you put your one foot in front of the next and you fall down, and you put another foot in front of the next and you fall down, and you put another foot in front of the next and you fall down, and you just keep putting foot in front of the next, and the next thing you know, you're on top of the mountain. And that hit home with me, because I'm like, it's so true. Like, there's mornings when I wake up, I think everything I touch turns to crap. And there's other mornings when I wake up and I, like, man, look at that journey. Look how we got here. It's incredible. It's mind-blowing. But at the time, it was just baby steps.
Right.
Little baby step. But parenting that, like, how do you're trying to always protect your kids. And
right.
I feel like the people that let their kids fall down and get hurt are better parents than the ones that try to shelter that, because, strong men make weak children. You know what I mean? And the next one's weaker and weaker and weaker. And before you know it, that the weakest one ends up making a hard life for the next generation. And then he has to deal with adversity, and that creates a strong man again. And then you keep, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
I saw one the other day. It was a guy talking about, oh, my dad had a pickup truck, and then, I drive a Cadillac, and my son drives a Mercedes, and his son drives a Ferrari. And you know what I mean? It's like this. And you see the trend of how easy times create weak men and hard times create strong men. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's pretty crazy.
It's totally true. And I'm like you. I'm, maybe not exactly like you. I grew up in Stafford, Arizona, tiny little town.
Yeah.
Came up here. My dad got an apprenticeship at the mine, became an engineer. One of the first people to really leave
Love it.
the town. It was awesome. But, he always raised me with a certain value of, you're going to work hard for everything you get. Yeah. He never preached to me, but I'm like, that's just the way things are. So when my kids, like now that I have 3 of them, and certainly since my oldest are boys, I kind of want them to fail sometimes.
Yeah.
And I don't want them to fail because I want them to feel bad. Yeah. I want them to know sometimes that they're not giving the effort necessary to win.
Learning experience, invaluable.
And giving the amount of effort sometimes you think it takes to win isn't always that amount of effort. I remember when I was in high school, or even before that, when I was 11 years old, I loved basketball. Like, that was my thing. Yeah. And but I was chunky. I don't think anybody in my family knew anything about nutrition. Bless their hearts, they didn't. I was a fat kid. Yeah. And it wasn't because I just liked fat things. It's just that's all that was in the house, right? Yeah. But I'm like, I was determined to play basketball. So I used to wake up every morning, and it was exactly 1.1 miles around my neighborhood. And I'd 5 o'clock in the morning, and I would run it, and I'd shoot. My dad built me a really cool little basketball court, behind our house. Yeah. And I'd shoot free throws. And I'd do that every single day. Yeah. And I still never got good enough to make it, to college and all that stuff. But that led me when I was in high school to go to the gym at 5 o'clock in the morning when I knew I had football practice, and, I was just in better shape than everybody else because I knew what it took for me to be better than them. You know what I mean?
It's a true story. My dad, very similar to yours, small town. You know, we never had money. I mean, we had necessities that we needed to get by, but we used to cut firewood to heat our home. You know, and I remember every year the gas company would come over and ask to do an inspection on our home because we had no gas bill, and they couldn't figure out why. It was because we had this wood burner. And my dad didn't realize that at the time these things that we did every morning that were just basic necessity of life skills. You know, farmers go out and milk cows for milk.
Yeah.
And, you know, we cut down trees to heat our home. I mean, that's what I do now that will feed my family for generations, is this life skill that my father taught me out of necessity, you know? And we never had money, you know? It was just something that we did. And now those life skills are things that are becoming very valuable in everyday America. Like, everybody wants to call somebody to do something, but we're running out of people to call because nobody wants to teach the next guy how to do it and the next guy how to do it. You know, I'd love for my kids to all go to trade school. One can be a welder, one can be a plumber, one can be a diesel mechanic, whatever. You know, I think those skills are gonna be the millionaires moving forward, because that's the trades are what's needed right now. I mean, think anything you want done on your home right now, you call and people are like 4 to 6 weeks out on anything. It's unreal. That's job security.
Yep.
You know,
It's the same thing in the healthcare business, like both them and home services. It's like, oh, cool, yeah, we'll see you in 7 weeks.
yeah.
7 weeks?
I'm bleeding, bro.
Right. I might be dead by then. I mean, let's get real.
Yep.
And it's it's very apparent right now what our country needs as far as skills. And
Oh, for sure.
I agree, and I think it's so important, especially the younger generation, realizing that. I mean, the whole traditional go to school, go to college, and all that stuff. That's for a small, minute percentage of people that's going to be the success story.
For sure.
And people kind of get on me sometimes when I talk about college, because I went for a semester and a half, just wasn't cut out for it. It just wasn't my thing. But I dropped out, and 20 years later, yeah, I mean, I've done okay, and I've seen a lot of people that are still paying off student loan debts and still struggling, and I'm like, well, that's all fine and dandy, but like, you can learn those same skills getting an apprenticeship. You can learn that by getting a mentor. You can learn by, going and being an intern for free for a while.
Yep.
That still doesn't cost you the, $100,000 or whatever it costs for a 4-year
100%.
degree.
Yeah, I did the same as you. Went to school for a semester or two and sat in the front row of every class. I was lucky to get C's. That's just not how I learn. I'm not a books guy. Book smart's way bye-bye to me long ago. I'm a doer. I watch somebody. I could watch somebody tear a motor apart. I could put it back together, but I can't read it in a book and do it. There's no way. But I'll tell you, you're talking about the healthcare. My mentor, his name is Mike. He owns a healthcare company, and the guy. I feel like when people stop wanting to learn, that's when they start to fail.
Yeah.
Because things are constantly changing and evolving. And doing some tree work. He has about 15 acres in Paradise Valley, and I get a phone call to come out there from his groundskeeper to look at one tree. And I didn't know the guy. I had never met him. And I said, you got like 80 trees here. And he goes, well, I got approval to do one. I said, well, get the guy out here with many leather-bound books, and let's talk about this. He goes, all right. So he goes in, gets this dude. This guy comes out, and he's got like cut-off sleeves and tattoos. And you could tell he demands respect. He's walking out. Looks like he's come from the gym or whatever. And he goes, you got 3 minutes. I'm getting on a conference call. So I ran him around this whole property, showed him everything that was wrong with each one of his trees. He's like, how much? I'm like, 10 grand. He goes, done, do it. I said, it'll take 2 days. He goes, no problem. And then he said to me, he goes, I want you to know I've been pitched on a million things over the years. That was the best sales pitch that I've ever heard. He goes, you pitched me on a 5-figure deal in under 3 minutes. You gave me the problem, and you gave me a solution. You gave me a timeline in which to execute the solution. He goes, if more people did business like that, I would do more business with more people, you know what I mean? Instead of jumping through all these hoops and doing all this stuff. So he taught me something right there. I mean, my customer taught me something, right? That it was, show your customer a problem they're having, give them a timeline in which to complete the problem that they're having, and then give them a cost in which it will take to execute that solution.
Yeah.
And I feel like that can be applied to any business all the way around the board. And I ended up asking Mike. So I had another mentor named Mike. He was the CFO of Farm Bureau Insurance. he died of COVID. He took him from like $2 billion to $20 billion. And that was always my focus was, my dad was a semi-truck driver. So he worked for the man for 40 years, you know, and has the 401k and that sort of thing, but he doesn't know anything about entrepreneurship, you know, and how to, you know, build a business and scale it. So I never had that father figure to teach me that. And I've been really lucky enough, you know, Mike from Farm Bureau before he passed taught me that I couldn't be in the tree trimming trees anymore. I need to be the sales guy. And I took his advice and the business doubled overnight. And then I get to Mike Lavelle. He's in the healthcare industry, and he's like teaching me how to get from point A to point B and work through recessions and how to build your business to be recession proof and that sort of thing. And I just, you know, I take him to lunch once a month and present my peanut problems to him, you know. Anybody who's got 15 acres in Paradise Valley is doing pretty well.
Yeah. And,
you know, right at the base of Camelback, and I'm so grateful for this guy. Mike, if you're watching, thank you. He just, you know, I'll go in there into some of these meetings with him and he has no idea, but I'm just over it. And I'm like, some days I go in there and I'm like almost praying that he's just going to tell me to call it quits. Just so that the pain will end. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And he's like, oh man, it's just a game of chess. Like just shift this and do this and, you know, you'll be in good shape. And I'm so grateful. So, man, if I had to give anybody advice on their own business, it would be, number one, to be the most successful guy in the room, in any room you're in. If you're the most successful person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And two would be never to stop learning and never stop asking questions. Because there's somebody who's done it. I got a call this morning from a property manager in Montana. And he goes, hey, I want to preface this by saying we're a non-competitor, yada, yada, yada. And he's asked me about software. And I've had systems issues forever because I have multiple businesses, multiple phones, and I'm trying to run all of these businesses from a cell phone out of a truck. That is challenging, right? So we're talking about how we're moving information, and I feel like, you know, as much as I want to say that you can still do your business and keep it simple without software, at a certain point, when you get to a certain number of zeros you're trying to do, you have to rely on software. And you're seeing this being implemented all over the place. Look at when you go grocery shopping now, what do you see? Computer checkouts, right? And as much as I want to say I want to create jobs, I want to put people on the ground, it is way cheaper in the long run to program a computer to do the same thing over and over and over and over and over as it is to train a human being. Now, I'm not suggesting everybody go out and, you know, teach computers to do their business for them, but I get where those guys are coming from because there's a certain point in business where you have to make that decision.
Right.
Of where am I going with this in the long term? And people always ask me, what do you want to do? I'm like, I want to retire. Like my eventual goal here is to either build this to sell or build this to hand to my family to build generational wealth at some point, to just be, oh, it's a third generation, you know, property management company or third generation tree trimming company or third generation real estate firm or whatever it is, you know what I mean? But look back at your life 10 years ago. If you would have asked yourself 10 years ago what you'd be doing right now, I guarantee you it wouldn't have been sitting here with me talking, doing Regenerate, doing your pay-per-click stuff, none of that. You know what I mean? You would have been like, oh, I'm going to be a pro basketball player or whatever. You know what I mean? Like that wave was somewhere else, you know? And if you don't adapt and you don't create these, we'll call them exit strategies, you're planning to fail because the wave don't stop moving. You got to move with it and adapt when things happen.
Yeah, it's funny. So one of the things, so Rick and I have worked together for a long time. He now handles a lot of our pay-per-click. But he always is talking about, got to get ahead of the power curve. Got to get ahead of the power curve. Yeah. And he comes from the health club industry. He's like 67 now. He's been in that, was in that industry for like 40 years. Yeah. And that's what it was all about. It's like never wait until power curve is about to crush you. Get the things done, you know, as much as you can in advance so that you can foresee that. Because like when you're playing chess, for example, you want to be a couple moves ahead, right?
At least 2 or 3 moves ahead.
You don't want to be like, oh, well, let's see what he does and let me see what I'm going to do. You want to kind of plot it out. Well, it's the same thing in business. Is you always have to like, okay, what is the power curve? Like, how is my cash flow going to look towards the end of the month based on what I know my receivables are? How many people do I have on this particular project? Do I have enough nurses for this particular season of what we're going through? You know, like always looking at the data. And that's why it's important. Like, just get ahead of the power curve a little bit and spend that extra hour every day planning what you're going to do. And life is so much easier.
100%. That's Mike. Mike has been preaching to me about being recession proof. and how to prepare for that. And he's, he keeps talking about 2008. And he's basically told me, he's like, get to a point to where your business is debt free. So you own all this equipment free and clear. And he was telling me a story, about some people that he knew that, were building these big monster skyscrapers in big cities and have all this equipment. And, during the last recession, they lost everything. And he goes, if you go into this and all your equipment's paid off and you have no debt, and then the recession hits, let's say you go down to one crew. And let's say your crew makes you $1,000 a day, right? I'm just giving you numbers. That $1,000 is free and clear because you're not spending it on all this debt you have. And he goes, then that's when you use the rocket boosters to kind of scale that business up out of the next recession. And that's the time to build businesses is when you're coming out of that recession, because it's never going to get any worse. Your client base isn't going to be any smaller than it is then when no one has any money. And then if you were smart enough to stack away that cash, then you have liquid cash to purchase other entities that are failing.
Right.
So then instead of you buying all this new equipment, now you got a year-old truck from this other guy for half because you're buying it out of foreclosure. And again, I'm telling you, there's something to being the least successful guy. I'm all about being the least successful guy in any room I'm in. I love it.
I love that. That's a great tip.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I've been like that my entire life.
Yeah.
I was just talking to the gentleman that was here before. He's younger than us. He's 27.
Yeah.
Owns a junk removal company.
Nice.
And
is it Junk Rescue?
Yeah.
Kyle?
Yeah, Kyle.
Kyle's the man.
Yeah, Kyle's a great dude. But we were talking about how being as young as he was, we're talking about like management styles and all that stuff, but he was talking about mentorship.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's so important. I said, I used to be the youngest kid in every room.
Yep.
I mean, I had no qualification to be there, but I learned the most because like I was just soaking it in. I'd ask, and even today, like I might be a little older, but I still try to, like you, man, I try to get in rooms like, oh yeah, that dude is way more successful or knows more about this subject or has a better family relationship or whatever the case, better health. I mean, those are the types of things that drive all of us. That's how you learn.
I forget. I was at some convention with my wife. My wife used to do like these conventions for skincare products and whatever. And I remember being in a room with this guy, and I'm like, going to be supportive husband or whatever. He started talking about goal setting, and this guy's a wizard. I don't even remember what his name was, but it basically went like this. He was teaching people how to sell, and he said, you can't control sales. What can you control? The amount of people that you come in contact with to sell. I'm like, all right, like where are you going here? He said, so if I need to make 10 sales, I can't control the 10 people I sell, but I know that I have a 1 in 10 ratio. If I talk to 10 people, I'm going to sell 1, which means if I'm going to make 10 sales, I need to come in contact with a minimum of 100 people. I'm like, that's genius. So I've kind of implied that, or whatever you want to call it, put that to work in my businesses with whatever it is, right? So, and it works. The dude knew what he was talking about. So if you're starting a business, you need to, number one, set goals, right? Like, here's where I am, here's what I'm going to do today, and from doing that today, it's going to bring me to tomorrow. And then tomorrow, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, it's going to bring me here. So you set up daily goals, weekly goals, monthly goals, quarterly goals, yearly goals, and then I always love the 5-year plan. I love asking people what their 5-year plan is. And if you do exactly what I just said and you set that, there's literally nothing that's going to stop you. Take whatever it is you have. If you have $100 in your pocket to invest in your business, you take that $100 and you figure out how many people you need to come in contact with to grow that, and you just keep scaling it. And it works. And it doesn't matter if you're, I remember, I want to make 10 grand a month. If I can make 10 grand a month, life would be good. And then you get there and you're like, all right, how do I make 50 grand a month? And you just keep, the numbers just keep going up.
Yep.
And you're gonna problem solve along the way. I think how many things that you've come in contact with over the years, they're like growing, regenerate. Well, I do this. Well, now I need more dudes to shove needles in arms. Well, I need more of them bags hanging from,
Right. More
and
inventory.
you just keep, adding zeros to it and scaling, and before you know it, you have a sustainable business that some dude's offering you 7 figures for to walk away, and you're like, sweet.
That's exactly. And
I did that.
You hit it on the head because that's what I think every business owner should be striving for. Because if you're like building your business to sell, you're constantly thinking about how to make it better.
Yep.
My mentor taught me, and my partner in Regenerate, he taught me that. I mean, when they had their health clubs, they had already sold up in Washington one time back in the late 90s, and I mean for a chunk of change to 24 Hour Fitness.
Yeah.
And then he was wasn't an owner then, but he was sent down here to start the health club Pure Fitness.
Nice.
But then it was just one club.
Yep.
They had no advertising. Nobody knew who the hell they were.
Yeah.
And it was just like, okay, boots on the ground.
Yep.
But he had already seen it. He had already seen a huge health club, grow. So he knew the plays. He knew what to do. And it was, he felt like it was a slow go.
Yep.
But that was, those daily things that he was able to do.
Yep.
And recruit the right people down and manage and all that stuff.
Yep.
Created something great. But
Yep.
he always told me, he's like, I was building it to sell. And
Yep.
and when they did LA Fitness, he tells me, I still regret, because he had another partner who was at that time the money portion of it, and he was older and he wanted to get out of it.
Yeah.
He's like, I didn't. We would have had 20 clubs, not just 10.
Yeah.
We were already killing them. That's why they wanted to buy us so bad. But when you build your company and you get those choices, it's a cool choice to have.
It's
man.
tough. My newest struggle is my wife is so smart, man. I mean, she's a pit bull in business. She's better at business than I'll ever be. I mean, she's got it up here, She didn't have to work for that. It just came natural to her. And she has such a successful business, but I'm seeing her burning that candle at both ends and just wearing out. And so trying to, I don't know if you've ever tried to work with your spouse, but holy smokes, is it challenging.
Yeah, I know. I do work with my spouse quite a bit.
Right? It's super tough. But trying to take all of the things that I've learned in scaling what I've done and implement that into her business to make her life easier. And man, I love it. I love the challenge, you know what I mean? But I'm like, I see what it took to get to where we are. And I'm like, if we implemented a few software things and whatever for her to take some of the daily, rigmarole out, it'd put her here and then here. And then now there's two of us doing it,
Right.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. So.
Yeah, working with your spouse can be awesome. And as my wife's, she's different. Like I always joke, she's good at everything she's ever done.
Yeah.
Annoyingly so sometimes because it's like, how the hell are you just good at everything?
The wizard, you're the wizard.
But and keeps a good attitude and stuff. And I think we've been married it'll be 17 years.
Congrats.
Later this month, actually.
She get an award for that, both of you?
Hey, if she's been married to me for a week, she should get an award. I'm not the easiest person to deal with sometimes.
I love it.
But she's learned really well to actually take my advice.
That's awesome.
And it took some time. I think as it takes anybody. And now I've seen it. She asked me my advice on a lot of different things, and sometimes I found myself even in the last couple months taking it for granted.
Yeah.
And then I think back to that 25-year-old, 26-year-old.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why didn't you listen to me then?
Yeah.
It's just like the maturity. So it's kind of fun when you grow as a couple like that, and you're able to have those conversations and be vulnerable. And I'll listen to her, and she a lot of times has really good ideas, and I don't necessarily want to hear it right away.
Yeah.
And I still work on that, and I'll come back.
Marinate a little bit.
And I'm like, that is a pretty good idea.
Yeah.
Or I'll run it by my business partner. Hey, just brought this up, and what are your thoughts? And but I think that's what makes a successful marriage work in business.
For sure.
Having that, being able to listen and communicate.
I've always said behind every strong man, there's a stronger woman. And that's super true at our house. Anne she's on point, man. It doesn't matter what it is. And 9 out of 10 of my ideas are stolen from her. I mean, she just has the ability to come into a situation and look at it from outside the box and be very diplomatic and show you. And then with her, she's just a numbers person, right? I can preach at her till I'm blue in the face, and she's just, but if I can show her the numbers and why it makes sense, then she's all over it, which is pretty cool. I'm not the numbers. I don't like to crunch.
It's good to have that balance, though.
For sure.
Got to have that pragmatic, just show me the numbers, and then you got to have more of the creative visionary, and then when you can kind of couple of both, it works out great.
No doubt about it.
It's awesome, man. So what's next? You got your property management company, you got your tree trimming company. It seems like you've got a very good vertical integration for the same customer over and over.
Yeah. What's next? So in 2008, what I learned was I had all my eggs in one basket. So we diversified now. We're heavy in real estate still. We bought some real estate up in Prescott, which just made it through the fire. We're just now allowed to get back to our cabin. So we got that going, which I'm excited about. But I think I'm going to get more into the general contracting side of things. I just see a huge void in Phoenix, especially. They're building new homes everywhere, but the problem is there's no handyman. There's no, basic service providers to do basic things. So if I can come up with a hub in which people can come to me and we'll call it a handyman service, but handyman, like I want my kitchen redone. And I can facilitate these 5 contractors that it'll take to do that. Again, problem, timeline in which it'll take, solution, and cost. Your options are endless because there's no ability to do that. Nobody wants to deal with it, And,
Right.
and I think that would be that would get me out of the field so that I'm not, swinging hammers and doing it, but be that relationship guy. I've always been good with relationships and basically just GC the stuff, babysit all these different contractors to get them to where they need to go to bring the money through. And people are happy to pay. They just want the service,
Right.
Everybody wants to call somebody. It's just tough to find those guys to call now.
It's true, and especially right now, coming out of COVID, restaurants I think is the most polarizing.
Yeah.
People aren't trained anymore.
No.
They're not trained to do the basic things like in customer service. I mean, coming to a restaurant, you need a smiling face.
Yeah.
You need some rapport built
Yep.
on your way to the table.
Yeah.
You should have, if you drink, you should have a drink on the table within the first 5 minutes. You should have some bread if that's what they do.
Yeah.
And then just everything should be accommodating. Everything
Yeah.
should be about you.
Yep.
But you got to, I think Peter Jungle is probably the most recent. Me, Eric, and my other partner John, we walk into Peter Jungle. This is maybe a couple months ago. And this was the whole mask was like mandated and all this stuff. And we just forgot. It was just right down the street. And the girl just barely looked up. You got a mask? No. Literally like hucks it on the table at my partner John. And if John, that was like, all right. He said some choice words.
Strong move.
Yeah. So we go sit down, and 3 of us like, God, can you believe that? Like, she could have just. I would have been happy to, no problem.
Yeah.
But have some personality,
Yeah.
be like nice and cordial and
Yep.
stuff, and But so to your point, back to like the home services.
Yep.
Yeah, man, people want their kitchen redone. They want their backyard remodeled. They also want that shit done in a timely manner.
Fashion, yeah.
And it's not done in a timely manner.
No.
I mean, everybody I've talked to, for the most part, it's like, oh yeah, I was having this done. Yeah, it took an extra 2 weeks. It took an extra 3 weeks, 4 weeks. I get it. People get busy.
Yep.
But there is something to sticking to timelines,
Yeah.
getting them done, and keep people happy.
The other thing too, I think, is to blame for a lot of the issues we're having in the workforce is everybody's so used to looking at a screen. Nobody has the ability to problem solve with another human being anymore. I mean, people do, but very few. Everybody's so used to sending an email or a text with their frustrations versus looking at somebody, telling them what the problem is, what your solution is. And we get calls all the time. We do trees for like Lowe's, FedEx, PetSmart, and I deal with these people to where I'll literally call them. They won't answer their phone, and they'll send me an email. And I've literally told people, if I call you again and you don't answer, and then I get an email 30 seconds later, I won't ever call you again. Like, we're all done. I can get more done on a 30-second phone call than we can get done in 30 emails.
Right.
Like that. And at some point, you have to, I call it putting my efficiency foot down and just say, like, hey, I had this conversation with my software guys that I'm working with to build this platform out so we can continue growing. I said, here's the deal. Don't ever give me a timeline that you're not going to meet. It's okay to just tell me, I don't know. But don't tell me Wednesday at noon and then show up Thursday at 2 or we're going to have a big problem.
Right.
Just say I can't give you a timeline and we're good because we have no timeline. But don't tell me something to do something else.
Right.
Whatever it is that you tell me, you must do exactly that. And I've always tried to be that guy and, whatever. Obviously, there's extenuating circumstances. But, I try to pride myself on, what I say happens. You know what I mean? I feel like that's a huge important thing. And being able to look, I love the old timers because they love to do everything off a handshake. And that's how just recently we literally retained an attorney and like got all these documents, went quote unquote corporate. You know what I mean? But that's where it is now, It's sad that you go out and do $4,000 or $5,000 worth of work for somebody and you go to get paid for your work and they look at you and they say, sue me. You're like, what? I have chainsaws and wood chippers, bro. You sure?
Right.
You sure you want to go this route?
Exactly, and a really good lawyer. So.
Yeah, yep. So it's tough, man. You know, it's always trying to adapt and figure it out. But the best lessons are the most expensive, man. And this past year, you know, we've gone through some good ones. I'll tell you, stuff that I never in a million years thought that I was going to deal with, and I feel like we've adapted quite well and built contracts around those lessons, and you know, sued enough people and kind of know the law and that channel in which the law works and how to stay within the law, but get people to hang themselves that want to do illegal things, like not pay you, theft of services, that sort of stuff.
Right.
You know, but it's taken some years, man, and tens of thousands of dollars lost learning those lessons. But, you know, one foot in front of the next before you know it, you're on top of the mountain.
That's it. No, it's great, man. Well, it sounds like business is going well. You have a really good vision of where you want to go, and family life's good. That's it's exciting, man.
I'm blessed, man.
So where can people find you online, and how can they, you know, utilize your services as well?
Yeah, so I'm on Facebook for sure. My Instagram and Twitter got hacked, but under new management on Twitter now. So I just got back on. I have like 3 followers, I think.
Nice.
So follow me on Twitter. It's just Jesse Sinsack. And then my Facebook, just Jesse Sinsack. I got a blue check mark on Facebook still. They didn't hack that one. I got one left.
Good.
And my website. You can always find me at jessesinsack.com. Or if you're just trying to get your trees trimmed, Arizona Tree Trimming and Removal. We're all over the place.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Well, guys, I know you got a ton out of this, so make sure you share this with your friends. Leave a comment, you know, for Jesse or myself. Like it, subscribe to the channel. We appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you next time.